What's up guys, Tony from Tucker Speed here, and today we got another install video. I got a 2024 Road Glide behind me. Customer came in and was just saying that the clutch lever was a pretty heavy pull. So what we have sold him is the Mueller Power Clutch. And I'm gonna walk you through kind of step by step on how to install these. These are available on our website at tuckerspeed.com. They have fitments for M8s, twin cams, and different sorts and models. So check them out. Let's jump in. I'm gonna get going on this install. So I'll go over a tool list. I'll get all my tools laid out and we'll talk about what tools are gonna be needed in the install and maybe a few key points that you're gonna need to pay attention to. So let's get going, start tearing this thing apart and get into the step by step. All right, so as far as tools go, specialty stuff, a good pair of snap ring pliers is probably the most, kind of oddball one. A good socket set, Allen set, as a T27 for your derby cover. The adjuster was two 15mm wrenches for the new Mueller clutch adjuster. You're going to need clutch adjustment tools for the clutch pack adjustment. I would recommend that 1/2" wobbly for the exhaust nuts. Other than that, pretty basic stuff, pretty easy install. If you have any questions, like I said, drop them below. First thing I got to do is I got to drain the transmission fluid, and I'm going to get the exhaust out of the way. Depending on the exhaust that you have, you might be able to just loosen it and maybe pull it away. This guy's got a Fab 28 2-into-1 and it's covering up this clutch release cover pretty good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get the whole thing out of the way and make it easier for myself. So I'll get that far and then we'll talk some more about the power clutch. I'm gonna remove this derby cover while I'm over here. So we do gotta unadjust the clutch during this process. So I'll just go ahead and get this open now. Guess I better get this floorboard out of the way first. And the trickiest one is this front bottom one. Just always a lot of stuff in the way. What will save you is this 1/2" wobbly, 1/4" drive. It's the best exhaust tool. I use the snap-on wobblies just because I've had other brands and they tend to just wear out and get really loose really fast. Snap-on ones, I can get a few years out of them and then warranty them. That just dropped right into the abyss. I'll have to go find that one. Okay, now I've got the exhaust out of the way. I've got the transmission fluid drained. I have the derby cover off on the left side. I'm just gonna go ahead and unadjust the clutch on the other side, and then I'll be done on the left side, and then it's ready for me to remove the clutch release cover and get the ball and ramp out of the cover, and then we'll jump over to the clutch cable and install the new adjuster there. So let's get this unadjusted real quick.
Is unadjust a word?
Unadjust? It's a word in my vocabulary. All right, so we'll just go ahead and turn that out so there's a bunch of slack in the system there. And then let's jump back over here to the right side. And since this is a 24, we got this new gear selector sensor that we got to pull out of the way. Got me a new T-handle from Motion Pro, kind of like it. And a dead bee. We should put whiteout on it for research. Yeah, so I'm just gonna set that thing up out of the way for right now, and then I can get the clutch release cover. This thing is probably still gonna drain a little bit of fluid all over the place, so I'm just gonna kind of stuff a rag down in here just to kind of keep it off all this wire loom and cables and everything that's underneath here, and try and catch as much of it as I can. All right, we'll let that hang there for a second and kind of drain out. All right, so we got the clutch release cover removed from the bike. Got the old gasket peeled off. I'm going to pull these clips off the clutch cable here. And Harley's done a good job of kind of like burying these things in here. There's the bottom one. So we're going to slide the cover up, push this clip out and release some tension off the cable. And then we can release the ball and ramp. So we are going to need some heavy duty circlip pliers here. Get this ring out. Try and keep a finger on it so it doesn't fling and hit you in the face. Set that aside. And then this will lift up and out. And so there's 3 ball bearings that are going to be loose in there now. So just watch those because you are going to need to reuse them. Pull the retainer clip, and then this bottom plate, you can see the 3 loose ball bearings that are in the plate. So just keep in mind that those are going to fly out and bounce across the room if you're not careful. So now that we got that out, with the cable not attached to the ball and ramp, what we're going to do is we're going to move over and we're going to change the clutch cable adjuster now. The Mueller comes with a new adjustable sleeve that goes in line here. So get that out. And we got to get this thing detached and disassembled. All right, so I think the trick here to get this disassembled is you want to press down on the spring and then press the red clip, and then it gives you access. There's a little like tab that'll hold this cable, and you want to bend that up, and then you push it up, and it'll come up out of the little, mechanism that holds the end of that cable. And then once we get that up and out, we're going to go ahead and open up these lock tabs. So that this gets released from the bottom half of the cable there. And we'll remove and discard the yellow plastic. Well, now you can see that spring is compressed because the red clip is kind of holding it. We'll press the red clip back out, and we're actually going to remove the red clip completely out of the way, and we're going to discard it. And this is the tricky part, because this black plastic sleeve here is on the cable. It cannot come off, and we've got to cut it off. So you got to have a creative way to cut that off. The instructions from Mueller says they use a little hand like hacksaw. I got to dig around in my toolbox and see what I have available. So I'm going to check and see what I got and get back to this thing. All right, now that I've got that split in half with a little hacksaw blade, all I had was a blade, no handle. Just remove the spring, and then the instructions do say if a touring model, the spring slides off. On a soft tail, it won't go past this little cable keeper, and so you'll have to cut the spring off. So touring model, it slides right off. And now we're ready to go back together. We're going to go ahead and discard the spring, the red clip, the black thing that we cut in half, and the yellow plastic part. All of that's going away. So now we've got the 3 threaded pieces up top that are the adjuster. We're just going to go ahead and line up the slot in all of those and then install it on the cable. Slide it all the way up to the top. Just go ahead and rotate it so it doesn't slide back off. And then we're going to slide this on the bottom and have the cable come out the slot in this side here. Oh, and I guess I should make note that there is a shoulder on one end of these, this tube, and that's going to be sitting, you want that to go on first. And then that's going to slide down over the cable until it shoulders out. And then, honestly, I think it might be easier to just actually have that cable inside the housing. Let's see, we'll give it a shot. So you're going to get, this part's a little bit tricky here. So you want to get in this little sight window of the adjuster tube. You want the keeper from the top half of the cable in the window, and then also the other. You're going to want to kind of keep a hand on this, and then from the clutch release cover, you're going to push on the cable itself, which is going to kind of push that up in there. See how it just dropped into the keeper, and now I'm pulling it back down. And then that lock tab that we bent down earlier, let's go ahead and lock that back in. Now when I push up on that, it won't pop out of the keeper. So that's installed, and now we're ready to install the ball and ramp assembly and put this thing back together. I'm just gonna get everything kind of cleaned up and prepped here before I start going back together. I like to get my gasket surfaces kind of cleaned of all old oil. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the new power clutch installed. So like I said, we're gonna reuse the ball bearings out of the stock one. A little trick that I like to do, just makes it a little easier when I'm going back together, is I just take a little bit of grease and I'm just going to kind of dab them in these little pockets that the ball bearings sit in before I drop the ball bearing in it, and then it just holds the ball bearing in place during assembly. That way, as I'm kind of moving this thing around, trying to get the top half and the cable attached and the clip in, these things don't fall out of place. So you take your bottom plate, you got the little tab here, it has a slot that it's going to line up with in the cover.
Are those being closer why it changes the clutch pull?
Part of it, yeah, and the angle of the ramps. So those are in place. We will be reusing the cable adapter or attachment clip. So that slides on, you can see here, it slides on and then pulls and locks into place, and it actually goes on that way, so you got to roll it over, and then the clutch kind of comes in. It's got flat sides on it, so it only goes on one way, and then once it's rotated, it can't come off. So then we'll drop this down into place, and I like to make sure it's kind of pushed all the way up. And now we're ready for our clip. So just kind of set that there. That's another point where like the grease kind of helps those ball bearings. You know, if that thing kind of moved, those ball bearings all fall out of place and you got to start over. Get our clip ready here. Put this clip in. And then I like to make sure the ends of our clip kind of split one of these slots down here. If you're looking at it this way, it'd be like, the 11 or 10 o'clock position. Make sure that the end of the clip isn't like that, like sitting in the slot. If I can get back on there. I like to make sure they are fully, the ends of the clips are fully in the groove, so that should be good there. And if you're interested like how this thing works, as you pull the cable and it turns this thing, the balls are actually forcing this upward or outward when it's this way, and then pushing on the clutch push rod, which pushes through the main shaft and then opens the clutch plates. So that is installed. I'm going to go ahead and get my gasket surfaces really clean and dry and reassemble, and then we'll get into the adjustment part. All right, so before we start disassembly, we're going to start assembly. We're going to undisassemble. All right, before we start assembly, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of all of our videos, the Law Tigers. If you're ever in a motorcycle accident and in need of legal help, give the Law Tigers a call. They'll make sure you're taken care of. Thank you, Law Tigers. So I got my gasket surfaces prepped here. I'm gonna go ahead and start getting this thing buttoned up and adjusted. So I'm gonna get a gasket put in place here. And I gotta grab some Loctite for my bolts here real quick.
It's in them bags.
That guy ran with that photo. So he was at a Moto America, a King of the Baggers race, and he was like in the crowd or whatever, and they showed it on the broadcast. And ever since then, he just tags or uses it on all of his comments.
Yeah, do you know what torque spec is on?
Torque spec on those is 90 to 110 inch-pounds. So that's in. Put my gear indicator sensor back in place. I'm going to go ahead and remove my transmission filler dipstick right now. It's just habit for me to remove it and set it aside. He's got one of the cool new Figurati magnetic dipsticks. You can see here it's got some fine metal shavings on the magnet, so the magnet's doing its job. But anyways, I'm gonna pull this and set it aside, set it on the lift. That way I don't, mistakenly send the bike out the door and forget to pour transmission fluid back in. This is my kind of safety for making sure I get the oil back in there while I button up everything else. All right, so starting on the adjustment, now that everything's back together, we have the new Mueller adjuster on the cable completely collapsed. I'm going to go ahead and run this adjuster screw in. Make sure you're not hitting up against the lock nut. Make sure it's backed off all the way. And we're going to look for just that first initial contact, slight. And you'll kind of see the pressure or the adjuster plate kind of press up against the retainer clip. And then we're going to go about about a quarter to a half turn. And we're going to lock it down right there. So now that the clutch pack is adjusted, we'll come over here to the clutch cable side. And we're going to thread up you can see I'm taking up some of that slack there. Check my lever. I'm going to adjust it to where I have a certain amount of free play at the lever here. You want there to be a little bit of, and these ones are kind of deceiving, these new bikes. They have a spring in the lever and it kind of makes it a little trickier. I'm going to pull on the cable. If you guys can see where the cable meets up against the clutch perch there, that's all free play. And that's probably a little bit too much. Mueller is stating like 1.5 millimeters. We don't really work in millimeters around here, so I mean, if anything, I'd just say the width of a nickel. It'd be pretty dang close. So I'm going to go a little tighter here. And this is something that you may have to kind of fine tune. And actually, that's pretty big now. So I'm going to actually adjust it some more. I think that's pretty close. So now I got my adjustment where I want it. I'm just going to go ahead and, the center one is a lock nut, so we'll lock it to the bottom. Make sure it doesn't come unadjusted. And then we can slide the cover back over it all. All right, so that's pretty much it. I got to put the pipe back on and the floorboard, so I'll get that buttoned up. But as far as the install on the Mueller Power Clutch, that's it. Fairly straightforward. There's a few key points. The clutch cable adjuster is a little tricky, and maybe even having another set of hands to kind of like hold everything kind of collapsed and then fish the cable out of that little sight window on the yellow plastic piece, and then kind of going back together might be helpful, but definitely can be done solo. And just making sure those three balls stay in place in the ball and ramp, and then obviously getting the adjustment right on. And like I said, the adjustment might be something that you're going to want to get the bike down on the ground. The first test you're going to want to do is get the bike fired up, pull the clutch in, put it in first, and then how easily can you find neutral again? Are you getting full clutch disengagement? And then a test ride and making sure it feels good there. There is if you look at the Mueller website, they have some information there. They actually have a measurement where you can put a dial indicator on the adjuster screw, and then you can pull the clutch in and watch how much it's actually moving the clutch pack and make sure it's a sufficient travel. So I think the first thing that I would do is just that, fire the bike up, see how easily it pulls or finds neutral after you put it in gear. And then if it feels like it needs more, kind of readjust everything, kind of collapse the cable, readjust the clutch pack, maybe go a little bit less on, if you went a half a turn, maybe only go a quarter, and then readjust the cable and try that and go from there. So hope this video has been helpful. I'm going to get the exhaust thrown back on and we'll get this thing down. We'll fire it up, test clutch engagement, and then kind of go from there. All right, so that is it. We are complete with installation. I'm going to take it out back and test it. Right offhand, I do notice a decent, improvement in lever pull. It's a little bit easier. I did feel like before it was a pretty hard clutch pull for a stock setup, so I think the customer should be happy there. Very easy install, great product, and we're going to go out and test it, and then I think customer should be happy. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. All these products are available on our website at tuckerspeed.com, and we'll see you on the next video.